10 minutes. T-minus 9 minutes. T-minus 8 minutes. T-minus 7 minutes. 5 minutes. T-minus for minutes. T-minus 3 minutes. T-minus 2 minutes. T-minus 1 minute. Stand by.
How about that?
Yes, that's right. How about that? Are we on? Are we live? This thing on? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't ready for the weekend. It's a Football Friday on your favorite talk show, The Rod Pedersen Show, episode number 1514 coming at you from Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, where it's coolish today, but I'm enjoying that. A lot of football talk coming up on a Football Friday. Jim Barker from the CFL on TSN in hour 2 to preview the Week 2 games. Darren Moose DuPont joins us. He's back in Toronto after a day off yesterday, doing in the acting business yesterday. Moose, are you ready to get down to business? I can't hear him. Is that a me thing or is that a Moose thing? What's going on? Hi, we're off to a great start. What's up? You want to try that again? So I'll handle this on my own. Thanks, guys. What a great start to the day. I'll get into the quick six show topics here. And Moose, I guess you can keep talking. And if I hear you, then we'll bring you on. We're cooking with gas. The Stanley Cup final will resume on Saturday after the Edmonton Oilers even the best-of-7 series at 2-2 with a 5-4 overtime victory over the Florida Panthers on Thursday night. Leon Draisaitl scored his record-setting fourth overtime goal of this postseason to lift the Oilers to victory. Florida had a 3-0 lead in the game before Edmonton staged its comeback. Game 5 will be in the Alberta capital. Are we going to try this with Darren or not? We got you.
Hello.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, we got you.
Oh, we're good.
Yeah, we're halfway through the opening segment. Funny how that works. I didn't see this coming. I had Florida picked to win the game last night. I'm glad we didn't play our breakaway picks because you'd have picked Edmonton. But you weren't on yesterday. So it's 2-2. And it's a hell of a story. We thought it was over. Twice in this series, the Panthers have had big leads. 3-1 in game 1 and 3-0 in game 4 and lost both. And Darren, there's Panthers fans saying, we could have swept him by now. My aunt could have nuts. And if that was the case, she'd be my uncle. You didn't. I don't like the defeatist thinking. I don't like the what-if thinking. It's down to a best-of-3 now, Moose. What do you think, Darren? Where does this series go?
Well, it's going to 7 games. You and I said that already last week or this week. I don't think that's changed. These are the 2 best teams in the National Hockey League. And what's so great about this series, I wrote about it on Wednesday in my column. We talk about it on the show when I mentioned the tennis thing, and I said the Oilers will be fine. I was a little nervous when they went down 3-0 in the first period. I'm like, hello? I told the world you guys weren't going to let 6-1 turn into another bad one, but they didn't.
Yep.
They wiped it. They were fine. It was a great move by Knobloch to make the goaltending switch. That paid off for him. When you have 2 really good teams, they don't fold. They just don't fold. And even in a 6-1 game, the Oilers didn't fold in this series. The Panthers, up 3-0, the Oilers didn't fold. The Oilers coming back to take a 4-3 lead in the third period. The Panthers didn't fold. These are just 2 good teams throwing like haymaker shots back and forth, and only one will be left standing in Game 7.
Well, it was worth waiting for the analysis from Moose. That was some very good stuff there because a lot of the same things have been echoing in my mind. These are great teams. Okay, so the Panthers think they can get up 3-1 or 3-0 and take their foot off the gas. No, you can't because you're not playing the Leafs. You're playing the Edmonton Oilers. Sorry, not sorry. So I'm with you. I think it's going 7 as well. And before we go any further, because I know a lot of football fans have showed up today for a Football Friday. In the next segment, we're going to go deep on that with a lot of things to get to. But the opening story, the big story of the Quick Six is the Stanley Cup Final. So Stuart Skinner got pulled last night after falling down 3-0. Calvin Pickard came in and got the win. The poll question today for EMJ Marketing. By the way, transform your audience with powerful presentations from EMJ Marketing's elite speakers. Check out their website for more information, emjmarketing.com. Who should start in goal for the Edmonton Oilers in Game 5? And this is going to shock the world. I'm going to say that it is Calvin Pickard. And people are going to go, well, it's obvious it's got to be Calvin Pickard. It's not obvious. As Lee Corso says on College Game Day, not so fast. to be honest, I think John Cooper might have gone back with his number one guy, Stuart Skinner, if this was John Cooper coaching things. But I think it does have to be Pickard. That's my vote. How about you?
I'm with you on that one. I think we were both in unison that it was Stuart Skinner's last game. And I think starting him, and even though he allowed the 3 goals, I still think that was the right move to play Stuart Skinner. But in game 5, you're going to play Calvin Pickard. I think that's what I would go with as well.
Stop the presses and write it down. June 13th. Stop the presses. Jeff, the Stamps fan, writes it. He says, normally I would pick CFL over anything, but glad I chose differently last night. What a hockey game. Guys. I was in the press box broadcasting baseball last night. Okotoks and Moose Jaw. And I'm in one side of the press box. James Gallo, Chumley, and Hunsey are on the other side. And they got the hockey game on, and they're like, 1-0, 2-0. They're mouthing it to me across. 3-0. For who? Florida. 3-1, 3-2, 3-3, 4-3 Oilers. What? 4-4 going to over. What? Stop! I was running back and forth with the highlights, trying to announce the game, getting this. And as I was leaving, we have 2 minutes till the break. As I was leaving the facility last night, everybody's buzzing about this series. It might be the greatest Stanley Cup final ever. What I overheard in the park was, the Oilers got it now. No, they don't. They might, but I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk, Darren. I think it's going 7, and if that's the case, it's still a 50-50 proposition. I'm going to have to stick with the Panthers to win the series. You're probably thinking the Oilers, and could you imagine in this country if they end the drought?
We are in that moment where it's real. When you make your plans and it's a dream, and one day, you're here. You're 2 wins away from bringing the Stanley Cup back to Canada. Like, it's right here. But this series is not over. And the Oilers don't have it now. The Panthers didn't have it after going up 6-1 or winning 6-1. The Panthers didn't have it going up 3-0 in the first period to take a 3-1 series lead. They didn't have it. Nothing carries over. It's going to be a brand new game. It's a best-of-3 series, and it's going to be fun.
Got some great comments from the audience. I feel like everybody's actually in a really good mood and ready for the weekend and a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Before we went to air, I was like, this is going to be a great show today. They're all very good. Today's going to be great. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. And I got stories. Like Rich in Edmonton, remind me of this. Rich in Edmonton says, appointment made with my cardiologist after last night. I got a story about that. The Jug in Saskatoon writes in Moose. He says, Skinner hasn't lost a game 4, and Pickard's 7-0 in the playoffs. Skinner doesn't get credit for the win, just so you know. He's still 4-0. Come on, Jug. You know that. So we got CFL, U.S. Open, Blue Jays, NFL notes, Canadian Football Hall of Fame, a lot to get to. We'll be right back here on Game Plus Television.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven. And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
The old RP show continues, everybody, on Game Plus Television, streaming live. And give us a like, a subscribe. Comment as well would help us out a whole lot if you're watching. I knew that, Corey. Thank you. I appreciate that for the heads up. He was like, Darren's gone. I'm like, Darren does that. Just roll with it. It's all good. He's fine. He's good. And now it's funny because 1,514 episodes, people still trying to figure out what we do here. The funny thing is, so are we. We don't know. Daniel in Winnipeg writes in, he says, I'm CFL all the way, but I can wait till hour 2. Bro, it's not broken up like that. Just settle in for 2 hours and just chill out, okay? There's no roadmap. We're just having fun. It's sports talk. Just enjoy, okay? Because we can go back and forth. We have the ability to do that, so why wouldn't we? Tony in Cochrane writes it. He says, I don't know how closely you got to watch Game 4 last night, Rod, but all 5 goals Bob let in, he was on his knees. 2 were okay, as was right play, but 3 he went down early and went over him. Concerns? I would be concerned if I was the Oilers because Bob doesn't usually have 2 stinkers in a row, and definitely not 3. And the thing about Bob, he reminds me of Carey Price in this, and I watch him every day. I've talked to him in Sunrise quite a bit. He gets to a point where he's like, no, you're not scoring. Do you remember Darren Carey Price? No, it's not happening. And at times in this series, we haven't seen that Bob. There were some bad goals last night. He'll be pissed off, and so that's not good for the Oilers. No, I saw the highlights, which was enough for me to see. Reg writes in, he says, are Travis and Taylor bad luck charms for the Panthers? I don't know. And here's the story that I said that I was going to relate, Darren, with Rich in Edmonton says, appointment made with my cardiologist after last night. My dad was in the hospital with one of his various maladies back in the day. He had a bad ticker by the end. And of all things, Mick Magoo's wife was his nurse in the general hospital. And she came in to check his blood pressure. My dad was still working for the Dallas Stars at the time. They had just lost in Game 5 against Colorado in some series, whatever year it was, and Marty Turco let in a bad goal. My dad was literally jumping on the bed, pounding his fists like it was like Lou Brown in Major League. Remember when he was in the hospital? Remember Lou Brown? And then so he sits down, he's purple, and she comes in and takes his blood pressure. She's like, oh my God. I'm like, wait, come back in an hour. So that's what sports does to people. So any more thoughts on Game 5 before we switch to football here, Darren?
No, it was just a really good game, and it was a remarkable job by the Oilers. I mean, after the first period, their season was over. They were going down 3-1. This was getting not bad. This was getting from bad to worse. but credit them for battling back and the Panthers for battling back. I mean, the only closing thought on this is what a hell of a series. Let's just enjoy it because it's a long way from over.
May go down as the greatest ever. It's tracking to that. Noni writes in from Calgary on the Western Dodge text line. Western Dodge and Moose Jaw, your trusted home for Ram, Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler. See their full lineup at westerndodge.ca. Noni, by the way, driving through Moose Jaw, came to a Millers game, brought her nephew, and came up to the press box for a visit and a photo. So this is Noni. She says, Rod, I have to admit, after the Oilers were down 3-0, I changed over to watch the exciting Lions-Bombers game. Then I switched back to the hockey game, and what an exciting finish. Fans can't ask for anything better. There's more comments, but I'm going to move along to this. Point 2, week 2 of the CFL season is underway. Nick Dembski had 2 touchdown catches in Winnipeg's 34-20 win over the BC Lions Thursday night at Princess Auto Stadium. Blue Bombers running back Brady Oliveira left the game in the first quarter with an upper body injury. He was the CFL's most outstanding player in Pop Canadian last season. I know you have a lot of thoughts on that game. I'll say it again. Winnipeg 38, BC 20. I picked BC. The odds makers picked BC. Darren Bombing, your replacement yesterday from Bonfire Sports, picked the Bombers, and he was right. And what I will say about this is it was a dominant win by Winnipeg. They went up 7-0. They scored on their opening drive. They never lost control of that game. Bomber Boy has written in and said, what's a more significant injury? He goes, this could have been a great poll question. What's the more significant injury, Nathan Rourke or Brady Oliveira? That's a good one, but we'll pick the question. Thanks. People want to continue to count out Winnipeg. I'm not there yet. I have them to be in the Grey Cup this year, Darren, but that's a long ways away from now. But they just looked like the Bombers of old last night, not the old Bombers.
Just wake up and get back to work, right? Like rinse and repeat.
Yeah.
Keep the routine going. And that's what the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have done. That's what they did last night. You know, I'm not really surprised. Excuse me. It's their season opener. They're excited to get going. Yeah, there's no Zach Collaros last night. Strevler got the start and all the rest, but he is very capable. He's a great player. He's a good leader. We know he's won. And BC's coming off a really short week. So there was already advantage Winnipeg coming into the game. And I know Brady Oliveira gets hurt, but what a game for Matthew Pedersen. I called his games at the University of Alberta with the Golden Bears. Really proud to see what he did. I think he was 23 carries, 130 yards-ish, and a touchdown. Love it. He was an MVP in U Sports. Love seeing what he did, but it is still devastating if Brady Oliveira can't go. It's not like Matthew Pedersen one game is the next Brady Oliveira. Maybe he will be. But that was a really awesome story last night. Loved that. And Winnipeg is Winnipeg. Why we should not be surprised that Winnipeg is going to be a good football team again.
No. Well, so the biggest reason why I thought Winnipeg wouldn't win last night was because Zach Collaros wasn't playing. And to be honest, Chris Strevler, I mean, he seems like a lot of fun at parties and everything, but I still look at him as a linebacker throwing the football. And I'm not totally sure that that's not what he is. Do you know, like I just don't yet. He's come into games. He beats Saskatchewan in the Banjo Bowl. That is unfair of me to overlook his abilities. But I also remember when he got the start against with the Arizona Cardinals against the LA Rams, and that was the end of his NFL sojourn. Doesn't mean he can't be good in the CFL, but I just didn't think he was that guy. 38-20 was a motorboating. John writes in, he says, who's BC's backup quarterback? By name, Jeremiah Masoli. John. Rich in Edmonton writes in, and he says, sports equals the ultimate distraction from the grind, which is why we love it. Well, Jeff the Stamps fan says Strevler is not a long-term starter. A game or two is fine. Yeah, and that's all that they've needed him for. So that's on me. I'm still not totally sure why he didn't play in the Grey Cup last year. I mean, I was there, and I still never got a really good explanation as to why he didn't play. Do you know why?
Strevler? Sorry, Collaros?
Strevler, why he wasn't even dressed.
No, not really sure on that one.
He had to have been injured. I don't know. But this Terry Wilson was the backup, not Strevler. I don't know. We got Rob down in Las Vegas watching, and there's so many comments coming in. Here he goes. He goes, Blue Bombers exceeded my expectations last night. The team is legit, even with all the player changes. Well, that is what culture does, by the way, everybody. Players can go in and out, but the results are the same. Okay? To be honest, it's actually a pretty good segue to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame announcement yesterday, but I'm not quite ready yet to move off this CFL topic in terms of the games. There's a game tonight, Montreal at Ottawa, a doubleheader on Saturday, Calgary at Toronto, and then the Riders at Hamilton. And that's my game of the week, Riders at Hamilton. You wanted to address the Saskatchewan running back situation, Darren. So fire away.
Well, I suggested it as a poll question. We ended up landing on the poll question, which is a good one, the better one. But who should be Saskatchewan's starting running back, AJ Ouellette or Kadeem Carey? We saw the roster get dropped, or the depth charts get dropped for the game on Saturday, and Bertrand Houdon is out, and Kadeem Carey is in the lineup. So it is Ouellette and Kadeem Carey, the two tailbacks for the Riders on Saturday. And I know a lot of Rider fans are ready to move on from AJ Ouellette already. They're thinking he might be a bust, and that let's see what Kadeem Carey can do. I'll be interested to watch that battle and what they do with the running backs. How many carries? How do they split this up? What's AJ Ouellette's health actually like? So I'm very curious. That'll be what I'm watching on Saturday.
There you go, everybody. And I'm casually following the CFL as a fan. Luke Wilson, of course, from the CFL on TSN, Super Bowl winning tight end with the Seahawks, put me in the top 3 CFL fans. Me, Justin Dunk, and Sasky Sidian. Those are the 3 from Luke Wilson. So all I'm saying, Darren's following it a little more closely, I guess, than I am. What I saw was that, Ouellette didn't finish last week's game for Saskatchewan. They signed Kadeem Carey. All of a sudden, boom, Ouellette's healthy for practice. Funny how that works. Is he that kind of guy? I don't know. But I'll tell you a story. Why does it need – I know you're going to have one back in the field, and who's it going to be? It's got to be one or the other. I don't think they have time to devise a 2-back system for Kadeem Carey and AJ Ouellette's has probably got to be one or the other. But there's in your heyday as a fan, Darren, we had 2 guys by the names of Corey Holmes and Kenton Keith. And we devised a way to have them both on the field at the same time. And my God, they wreaked havoc. But until they did, there was havoc in the locker room. For those that don't know and care, they love these old-time stories, and it's Football Friday, so this is what we do. I remember walking down the street in Montreal. We were walking to... Doesn't matter where we were walking. We were walking to a place. Corey Holmes, Paul McCallum, and Chris Zarka. And Corey Holmes was so mad. He was like, "Ugh, I'm not starting tomorrow." And like Zarka turned to him and goes, "Well, you're going to get into the game at some point. What does it matter whether you start or not?" And Corey goes, "It's not about that. I guess I can tell it now." He's like, "I do everything right," which, by the way, Corey Holmes did. He goes, "I do everything right on the field and off. And I got to back up this guy, Kenton Keith." And we were like, that happens. And then they had to find a way for them both to be on the field at the same time. Like, I don't have a problem with Kenton Keith. He's done nothing to me. He was one of the most electrifying Rough Riders running backs of all time. But let's just say there's a reason he's not in the plaza, which might be a pretty good segue over to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. But how do you like that story, Darren? Only one can start, and it doesn't matter how good of a guy you are. You know what I mean?
On the way to the Pink Pony Club, perhaps. Let everybody fill in the blanks on where you were going. I love that. Leave it open ended. We'll all kind of guess where they might have been going, and all the rest. But it's kind of funny. Lost my thought there for a second. But Corey Holmes, Kenton Keith. I mean, Kenton Keith went to play in the NFL and was good in the NFL. So an amazing talent. But Corey Holmes was a special player too, and that was the heyday. It was fun to watch those two guys.
Well, I'm just telling you, this is, what happens within a locker room. Everybody thinks it's all hunky-dory, and it ain't. Brad writes in, I appreciate people answering this for me because I thought I saw Strevler on the field in warm-up. Brad in Winnipeg says Strevler was injured at the game at last year's Grey Cup. That's why he wasn't dressed. Okay. I saw him out for supper with a PR guy, Darren Cameron. I ran into him with Kevin the Medium. The two of us were walking one way. It was by the Cordova's, we were walking to Cordova's for supper. Chris Strevler was with Darren Cameron. Seemed to be walking fine. I'm just saying, I remember him being there. Why wasn't he in the game? Thank you for the answer. Freddie in Winnipeg writes in, he says, excuse me, Rod, Father, for I have sinned. I got sports wasted last night. A shot of Hellebuck, the Bombers, and the Oilers. Have a good weekend. You're forgiven. You're forgiven. The Velvet Frog writes in, he says, I'm looking forward to the CFL game tonight. Als by 10. Wayne in Victoria, BC says, I love Kenton Keith, but I didn't know his personality at all. There was a rumor that he might have walked into a Regina restaurant on South Albert waving a gun. That was a rumor. I don't even know if that happened. I mean, people talk. You know, Saskatchewan, if they haven't heard a rumor by noon, they start one, which that was a Lancaster line, and that will come up in the next segment, Darren. I'll just tease it. Do I have time? Jermaine Copeland and Nick Lewis will soon be together again. Copeland was named Thursday to the Canadian Football Hall of Fame's class of 2025, which also includes offensive lineman Brian Chew and Jovan Olafoya, defensive back Scott Flagel, and linebacker Daryl Hall, along with former ref Glenn Johnson and longtime Regina Rams coach Frank Slick McChrystal. Oh, we got a lot to unpack there. We'll be right back here on Game Plus TV, streaming live on all major podcast platforms.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven, And I'm Connor Bedard. We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
The RP show continues on a Football Friday, and it's going fast, baby. Didn't I tell you it was going to be a great show? Moose is in Toronto, and I'm trying to get to as much of the topics as I can, but tell some stories as well. And I was just mentioning that story from downtown Montreal where Corey Holmes, Chris Zarkett, Paul Callum, and I were walking to a place. El Sasco, Fake Gainer, writes in, Darren, on the Western Dodge text line, and he says, Uncle Rod and Heel Moose, sidetracked, but we went to the Ballet in Montreal during Grey Cup 2008. A sea of Green Rider fans. Culture. Could tell we don't got the Ballet back home. Yeah, we used to go to the strip clubs. I went just to see which players were there. That's why I went, Darren. That's the only reason why I went. I wanted to see what players were there. That was my job.
Yeah,
Okay.
You got to get the stories for historical purposes.
I'm a reporter, for God's sakes. I was reporting on what players were in the strip club and what they were doing. Okay. Hall of Fame, Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Jermaine Copeland going in 2020. I love Cope. They had the best touchdown dances back in the day, remember? People talk about us as Stampede. He was an Alouette to me. Also, Brian Chew. No doubt. I can't believe he's not in already. Jovan Olafoya with the BC Lions was amazing on the offensive line. Defensive back Scott Flagel was a little before my time. Linebacker Daryl Hall was amazing for the Calgary Stampeders. Referee Glenn Johnson, to me, was not amazing, but it is what it is. And Regina Rams coach Frank McChrystal, slick, whom I texted yesterday, and he said it's a team award. But I will say this, is I texted Mark Mueller this morning, the Riders' offensive coordinator. I said, slick going into the Hall of Fame officially proves cancel culture is over. And Mark said, Darren, that it should be pointed out. I think Frank McChrystal did all of these accomplishments that he had as a volunteer. Nobody else in that class did. So leave it to Mark Mueller. Your thoughts on the class?
Yeah, pretty awesome. I think, you mentioned Jermaine Copeland. You see him as a Montreal Alouette. I think we might look back here and that decade of Montreal Alouette teams, mostly led by Anthony Calvillo, that were so good. I think we're going to go back and be like, that guy's in the Hall of Fame. 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 That guy. They're all getting into the Hall of Fame. But it just tells you how great they were. And these are wonderful players. It's a wonderful class and a great way to celebrate a great era of the CFL.
And, I'm sure you saw the meme that came out of yesterday's show where to paraphrase, I said Ken Austin doesn't care that he's not in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And I shouldn't speak for Kent, but let's put it this way. I didn't hear from him that I was wrong. And if I was, I would have heard from Kent. It is what it is. I don't know if you went into the mentions on that post where I said Ken Austin doesn't care that he's not in the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. People were like, he's an ass. He's a jerk. He's this. You clearly don't know him. And yesterday I sat with Joe 747 Gunnis and told Ken Austin stories forever. Like, I love the guy. But maybe I'm an acquired taste. You seem to be okay with me. Kent is Kent. He's not warm and fuzzy. Do you have to pay forever for the fact that he would yell, run down the field and get in his receiver's grill and shoot if he ran the wrong route? Or, that was the way that he played. But he won. It's a popularity contest, and as far as CFL circles go, Kent's not that popular. And to be honest, I didn't think I was either, but I was named in the top 3 fans by Luke Wilson this week from the CFL on TSN. And I don't mind being called a fan because I've changed, man. I've changed. Like Darren Bombing found out the hard way what happens when you try to report on a team old school way. You can't. So I'm here to be a fan, period. That's what everybody wants, and we're all good. So where the hell was I? Do you have a thought on that? Any of this?
No, I mean, a lot of jerks in the Hall of Fame, I'm sure. So I mean, I don't know what the real reason is Ken Austin's not in the Hall of Fame, but we may never know, and it may never matter at the end of the day.
It does. It doesn't. Well, and furthermore, on this Frank McChrystal going into the Hall of Fame being a volunteer. Jason in Red Deer writes, then he says, Frank McChrystal was my English teacher in high school. He was obviously a much better football coach than English teacher. LOL. Jason, that's a shot at yourself, just so you know. But anyways, yeah, I got to stay out of there. The comments. Calgary at Toronto on Saturday. I haven't read the game notes for this one, but I will read the game notes for – I did read the game notes for Sask at Hamilton. My game of the week, I told you, Darren, that I always loved the games in Hamilton with the Rough Riders, whether it was Iberwin Stadium or Tim Horton. Didn't matter to me. We had a job to do. What do you think about this? Trevor Harris is won his past 5 starts. I think he's, as a Rough Riders starter, 11-6. There's some astounding numbers in the game notes. Bo Levi Mitchell is going after his 100th win career. And if he gets it, he will be the fastest quarterback to do it in CFL history. I think Lancaster has that. That's why I said Lancaster is going to come up a couple of times in this program today. Mark Mueller is his grandson. So what busts first? Is it all about the quarterbacks? In the NFL, it kind of is. When you're picking winners, I find. Bo Levi wants his 100th. Trevor Harris is on a roll. Only one's going to happen or continue, right?
Yeah. Football is a quarterback and coach sport.
Yes.
The CFL, not quite as much as the NFL, but it still is extremely important. And I think this is going to be one heck of a quarterback matchup. I mean, for Bo, the season didn't start that well. They need a rebound. The Riders are rolling a little bit. Trevor Harris looked pretty good. I'm really curious to see what this game looks like on Saturday. And for Bo, I mean, he was really good last year, finished really strong and all the rest. But he doesn't want to go through that again where he got pulled for a couple of games and then gets back into being the quarterback. I mean, he needs to play well this week. Like, Bo needs to be Bo. And so I'm curious to see if he can on Saturday against a really good defense.
We did picks yesterday. I've got Hamilton picked to win the game. I still feel that's a very tough place for any visiting team to go into, despite the fact that Ticats were 7-11 last year. We're not doing picks on the CFL on the reg. We do at rodpeterson.com, however. Last week I was 4-0, and I remember you saying, or us talking about this earlier in the week, only the second time in 20 years that the home team swept the schedule in the CFL. I find that incredibly hard to believe. But if the game notes say it, it's true. Who do you have to win, Riders or Ticats on Saturday?
I have the Riders on Saturday. I just think they're a little bit better. I think the margin's really close. I think it'll be a fun game, but I've got the Riders to win.
Calgary, Toronto. What do you see in that one?
To be honest, I think this is going to be another really, really good game. And, you know, I think, again, I said pressure on Bo Levi. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Toronto Argonauts. They have to play well. I don't know. I'd have to go back, and it's been a while since they've been 0-2, I'm sure. I haven't looked at the game notes for the game this weekend yet, but Calgary's played well, and Vernon Adams has an opportunity to come in and say, hey, the Stamps are back. We're for real. So I'm really curious to see what this looks like, too. This will be another really, really good game.
Ted in Red Deer writes in, he says, late to the show today, but didn't Copeland play with Peyton Manning at Tennessee? I don't know. Look it up. The Barflies writes in, he says, it was great hearing the disappointment in Dusty's and Suter's voices last night after every successful Bomber play. Yeah, I just watch with the sound down. Makes everybody more happy. Carl's watching in Maryland. He says, my Alouettes are going 2-0 tonight. Can't wait for kickoff. That's the sad thing. I'll say this. Amongst all the teams in the CFL, I guess we're the furthest away geographically from Montreal and Ottawa, but those games get the fewest reaction in our polls and in our talk. But here's an Alouettes fan. There's a few of them that have written in here today, and we do have some Redlax fans, but Drew Brown's not playing tonight. I guess we should talk about tonight's game. I've got Montreal to win tonight at Ottawa. How about you?
Yeah, I do too. And it's the Drew Brown factor. I mean, he's been so good and he's not going to play. It's a huge hole for Ottawa. So Bob Dice, pressure on. And Montreal looked really good last week. So I got the Owls.
Okay, when we come back, Moose is done for the day. What are you going to get up to, you crazy kid, this weekend? Watching U.S. Open, I feel like.
I'll be watching a lot of golf this weekend, a lot of CFL, no doubt.
Okay. Well, you have fun. By the way, Ted and Red Deer, I'm teasing. I mean, it's been a long time since I've thought about it. I did not look at the bio of Jermaine Copeland when he went into the Hall of Fame announcement yesterday, but I do remember filling in my depth charts back in the day that he played at Tennessee. If that coincided with Peyton Manning's time, it probably did. I don't know. Good call. We will be back, as I say, with a sports update. Thanks, Moose. You have yourself a great weekend, and we'll see you Monday. And everybody else will see you after this break.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Welcome back, everybody. It's just you and me to the top of the hour. And then 20 minutes into hour two, we're going to get into a very deep football discussion, CFL discussion with our man Jim Barker from the CFL on TSN. I want to see if I still have this in my notes from a couple of days ago. Yeah, I do. You all, the P1s know that it was back in January that the National Football League said, yeah, we watch your show. We feel you need to be talking more NFL on your show. I'm like, Normally, I wouldn't put up with that, but it is the National Football League, and there's just so much going on. I kind of look at it as there's so many shows talking NFL. Why we would just be another one. Yet the hockey and football, CFL talk, nobody else is doing that. But it is interesting because there's an NFL note here that I was going to get to with Moose, but there's just so much other stuff going on. Time will tell how well receiver Cooper Kupp fits in with the new franchise, the Seattle Seahawks, after spending each of the past 8 seasons with the rival LA Rams and signing a 3-year, $45 million contract with the Seahawks in March. But in some ways, it's a homecoming for Cooper Kupp, who grew up watching the Seahawks. He's from Yakima, Washington, and played at Eastern Washington. He still has plenty to acclimate to, though, after all that time with an NFC West rival. Cooper Kupp referred to joining a new team as exciting, and he'll be catching passes from another Seahawks newcomer, quarterback Sam Darnold. You know, we can literally, this would be more of a thesis or some sort of a case study, but I go along with those that say the migrant, transient nature of players now makes it really hard to gravitate to a fan base. And to be honest, I'm here in Saskatchewan. I've been here now just over 2 weeks, and most people can't name you 5 Rough Riders. And these are long-time fans, decades-long season ticket holders, but the players change so much. Yet it's not a problem in the NFL, and there's just as much movement, if not more. Sam Darnold is the quarterback of the Seahawks. How long was he in Mini? 1 year? And did great things, but signed for the bag in Seattle. And now Cooper Kupp, deemed either too old or expensive in LA. He's now up in Seattle. So they're changing just as much there. It's a problem in the CFL. I don't know about the NHL because NHL one-year contracts have been very popular there for a long time, and baseball too. I don't know why it's hurting the CFL, but it doesn't seem to be hurting the NFL or these other leagues. You got to make it make sense for me. And that's just one topic, but I get where the NFL is coming from, but right now we're not going to invent things to talk about with the league when we got the Stanley Cup final going on in CFL Week 2. And by the way, making 4 overtime goals this postseason for Edmonton's Leon Draisaitl. He scored midway through the first overtime session to give the Oilers a 5-4 win over the Florida Panthers. Edmonton trailed 3-0 after the first period, stormed back for a 4-3 lead, only to see Sam Reinhart tie it with 17 seconds. I think it was 17 seconds. Off the ice, Winnipeg's Connor Hellebuck won the NHL MVP award, the Hart, and also the Vezina Trophy as top goalie. You know, and that's, by the way, the thing with predictions. I don't mind making the predictions. People love hearing our predictions. But so how can you, 3 of 4 games have gone to overtime, and you're going to sit there and tell me that anybody could accurately say what's going to happen in this series or on a game-to-game basis? I had Florida winning last night, and if they don't take their eye off the puck, or if Bob doesn't allow the soft goals that Tony and Cochran alluded to, they do win the game. And yet everybody wants to come back, you were wrong, you're not perfect, because that's society now, that it makes people feel better to point out other people's mistakes. And that's not something that I don't want to do, and I don't mind going out on a limb to make the predictions. Most people, though, in my business don't want to make picks because they don't want to look bad. I don't care. The first round of the U.S. Open is complete at Oakmont Country Club with only 10 players managing to finish under par. J.J. Spawn leads at 4 under 66. Tristan Lawrence is 1 shot back, and Brooks Koepka is in a 3-way tie at 68. It could be a costly victory for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Star running back Brady Oliveira left his team's opener early in the first quarter with an upper body injury. Winnipeg still went on to defeat BC 34-20. Lions quarterback Nathan Rourke was pulled in the fourth quarter due to an unspecified injury. Bomber Boy did have a very good question that I will pose to you, the audience, and you can write in on the Western Dodge text line 902-518-3033. Western Dodge and Moose Jaw, your trusted home for Ram, Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler. See their full lineup at westerndodge.ca. What is the more significant injury? Which team's more impacted by? Until we saw what Matthew Pedersen did for Winnipeg last night, I would have said Winnipeg. But BC, I don't think, can win, period, without Nathan Rourke. The Bombers showed they can win without Brady Oliveira. Case closed. The Oklahoma City Thunder are hoping their first road win of the NBA Finals comes tonight at Indiana. The Pacers earned a 9-point home victory in Game 3 on Wednesday to take a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7 series. A Thunder win would restore their home court advantage after splitting the first 2 games. The sports update is for Heavy Gym. Heavy Gym isn't just about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. Let's see what's crack-a-lackin' in the Western Dodge text line. Okay. Gary has written a novel. Let's pick out what we can read. Gary in Winnipeg says, sports fans were treated to a couple of great games last night. A third overtime game between the Panthers and Oilers that could have gone either way. A Bomber-Lions game with 848 yards of total offense. The only thing better than being treated to those games would be winning the lottery. Have a great weekend. And he goes on to say, your stat for all home teams winning is incorrect. I have run a CFL pool with my friends for the past 10 years. It happens at least once every year. In 2024, the home teams won all 4 games in weeks 7 and 12. It's not my stat. Let's make that clear. It's not my stat. It's from the CFL game notes, which I've said every time I've read it, I find that very hard to believe. And maybe I'm misreading it. That's very possible as well, because I'm not very smart. We've established that long ago. And if I had time and the means, I have the means, I don't have the time, I would look it up right now to see if I was hearing that correctly, reading that correctly. It also said there was a lot of astounding game notes. I hope this one is correct. Drew Brown, the Ottawa quarterback, which I've never totally understood this either. So he's had 3 straight games of 400 yards or more passing. Drew Brown of Ottawa. There's only 3 other guys that have done that, 3 games or more. Doug Flutie, Ken Austin, there's that name again, and Warren Moon. So he's not playing tonight because of injury, Drew Brown. So is the streak stopped? I don't actually think so. I don't think it is. Like if he comes back and plays next week and he throws for 400 or more, the streak continues. It's now 4. Yet, if you are a hockey player and you have a point streak going and you get hurt and miss a game, the streak stops. Doesn't it? Simon writes in and says, if Nathan Rourke is out long-term, that is a bigger issue. There you go. Running backs are easier to replace, but without Rourke, not sure how much Mazzoli can do for the Lions. Okay, Jeff, the Stamps fan, says, no, the streak continues. I would think. But I'm pretty sure that in hockey, and maybe because it's not just 1 game a week, but if you get hurt, the streak ends. John Barker, Jim's brother, writes in. He says, I agree, but a lot of great backup quarterbacks this season. With regards to the injury hurts BC more. Maybe we'll put that to Jim Barker. Here's another one. Of all the rosters that debuted in week 1, I found this probably the most fascinating of all of them, aside from Drew Brown joining a group that includes only Doug Flutie, Ken Austin, and Warren Moon. Of all the teams, the 9 teams in the CFL, 8 debuted last week. Winnipeg had the bye. There were only 12 rookie starters. That's not to say there's more rookies in backup positions, but there were only 12 rookie starters across the entire Canadian Football League. What does that work out to? 1.3 per team? 1 rookie starter, 0.3. 12 across the whole league. Is this becoming an older man's league again? Because not that long ago, it was a young man's league. As a matter of fact, during COVID, where the GMs were, well, we'll pay top dollar to our receivers. We'll give our quarterbacks. We'll give Eugene Lewis $250,000 a year. And we'll just bring in all these young American rookies. And for that matter, Canadian rookies to fill out the spots. That's not happening anymore. Do you find that fascinating? I think most people do. Stacy writes in from Access World Headquarters. He says, just saw that the Regina Red Sox were acquired by Queen City Sports and Entertainment. I wonder what that means with respect to a new ballpark. I would suggest don't hold your breath. They've been talking about building a new arena for even longer. Don't think either is going to happen. Glenn writes in from Medicine Hat. He says, it's always interesting to watch the lengths to which some people will go to when a podium finish in a popularity contest is at stake. Explain, Glenn. Explain, please. And I'll pass it along. Colin in Ottawa writes in. There's my Ottawa guy. The Argos don't have to start hot because Dinwiddie's play calling alone will get them at least 3 extra wins every season. Toronto's head coach is the best offensive mind in 3-down football. He's up there. I'm going to tell you, Mark Mueller is the best offensive mind in 3-down football. He's just not got the years behind him that Ryan Dinwiddie does. That's just me. And I spoke to Mark Mueller again. For those that have joined us late, we were talking about Frank Slick McChrystal, the Rams great, getting into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame. And Mark wanted me to pass this along to everybody. What makes it even more special for Slick is that he did it as a volunteer. Head coach of the Regina Rams, both junior and university. Unbelievable. Jim Barker next hour will be weaving our way between Stanley Cup final, CFL football, maybe any NFL notes and whatever else is coming up. And dag nabbit, I never got to my sports update for Heavy Jim. Did I? No, I never did. Yeah, I did. I'm ready for the weekend. Did I tell you that? See you right after this.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th. With special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Hour 2 of Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. We have some very fun and interesting things coming down the pipe with the RP show moving through the summer and into the fall, so stay tuned for those. They're big, and we're just trying to figure out. It's like riding a tiger. It's easy till you try to get off. You know? Where are we? Jim Barker coming up in segment 2 of this Hour 2. There's so many things that I wanted to get to with Moose. It just goes so fast with him. And he's off doing his thing already. We went through the quick 6 show topics, and we'll do it again for the benefit of those that just showed up. That's the quick 6 show horn. The big story, the Stanley Cup final. Leon Draisaitl scoring a 4th overtime goal to these Stanley Cup playoffs, and the Oilers won Game 4 by a count of 5-4 in Sunrise last night. And it's on its way to being the greatest Stanley Cup final ever. It's been a hell of a week. A great week, but a hell of a week. And Game 5 is Saturday night. It brings up our poll question today. Who should be the starting goaltender for the Edmonton Oilers? If you wonder why we're asking, you're not following the series, so I'm not going to explain it. But the daily poll is brought to you by EMJ Marketing. Transform your audience with powerful presentations from EMJ Marketing's elite speakers. Check out their website for more information, emjmarketing.com. Should they go back to Stuart Skinner, who is their guy, but he was pulled last night after giving up 3 in the first period, and replaced by Calvin Pickard, who went on to win. 80% saying Calvin Pickard should start. And to be honest, I'm the dance with the one that brought you kind of guy. But even Stuart Skinner, you could sit him down and say, Stu, come on. It's got to be Calvin Pickard in Game 5. And I can't wait to sit down. We got a night off of baseball and watch Game 5 with a big old greased wheel from Western Pizza. Week 2 in the CFL kicked off last night with Winnipeg beating BC 38-20. And listen, respect to the Bombers out of this show, which you Winnipeggers all know. That's our number 2 city for viewership. At times last summer, it was number 1, by the way, Winnipeg. I didn't pick them to win last night. It was only because Zach Caleros wasn't playing. Everybody was picking BC. The odds makers were picking BC. BC was picking BC. But Brady and Chris Streveler started. To me, I can't get past him being a linebacker playing quarterback. Yet they won. He wins. When they were in a pinch in the fall of 2019, he won when it mattered. Remember? And, you know, everybody says, oh, the Bombers, I won't say who, but a pundit came on this show and said that Winnipeg's trending down. Oh, yeah. Is that what 5 consecutive Grey Cups is? Trending down? So, while I didn't think they were going to win last night, doesn't mean I've got them picked to be in the Grey Cup, and I'll wait till fall to decide who I think is going to win. And they won again. Write it down. When you replace players, especially at key positions, and you still win, that's culture. We don't have time to go into it. If you don't know, you'll never know. And if you know, you know. Tonight, Montreal at Ottawa, and we all got Montreal to win. And a lot of this does go back to the quarterbacks, which I should go back to this. Bomber Boy, a P1 viewer of this show, he's been watching every day for years, had a really good secondary poll question. Which injury is bigger? Winnipeg's Brady Oliveira, because he was the league MVP last year, or BC's Nathan Rourke at quarterback? After debating it all, it's Rourke. Brian from Hudson's Bay Sask writes in on the Western Dodge text line. He says, in my opinion, it's not even close. Without Rourke, I don't think BC would win 5 games this year. They have no backup. Mazzoli is washed up and showed it last night when he came in. Woo! How about that? Back to Montreal at Ottawa. It's a quarterback league, as they all say. Every league is. Every football league is a quarterback league. And they don't have Drew Brown tonight. I like Matthew Schultz. He's a good guy. We've conversed on Twitter DM. I guess that's what it is now, right? Twitter DMs. That's how these players in the league get a hold of me. I like the guy, but Montreal and Davis Alexander look just too strong. I got them to win tonight. BW in Edmonton is another P1 viewer, and I'm going to read it just because he watches every day, but I'm not happy about it. BW from Edmonton writes in, and he says, published reports have the Halifax Wanderers soccer stadium looking to build the Halifax Wanderers soccer team looking to build a new downtown stadium, looking to copy Ottawa's Lansdowne Park. Maybe a CFL team could thrive in a 20,000-seat stadium. That has triggered the predictable responses from the viewers, but you're not going to trigger a response from me other than expansion was never a thing under Randy Ambrosie, despite what the commissioner and his cronies wanted you to believe, Brian and everybody else who believes this fairy tale. And now you got a new commissioner, Stuart Johnston, who said expansion is not on the radar. It's not a priority. So again, what language do we need to speak for you to understand the CFL's not expanding? Moving on. In the quick six, did you like that, producer Corey? You didn't even laugh in my ear. He's not been. He's been trying not to distract. Everybody else is distracting me. You might as well. What do I have? Stanley Cup final, Thursday Night Football, Canadian Football Hall of Fame. Bringing this up again for those that missed it in the back. Jermaine Copeland going into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame, joining his former Calgary buddy Nick Lewis. Offensive line men, Brian Chew and Jovan Olafoya. Defensive back, Scott Flegel. Linebacker, Daryl Hall. What this does for me is make me feel old when you realize that I was broadcasting their games. Former ref Glenn Johnson, which we have not spent enough time on Glenn Johnson getting into the Hall of Fame. And longtime Regina Rams coach Frank Slick McChrystal. As Mark Mueller pointed out to me this morning, Ron Lancaster's grandson and a disciple of Frank McChrystal, Frank did this all as a volunteer. How many people can say that are in the Hall of Fame? Just passing that along. Glenn Johnson, I didn't think he is a very good referee at all. The Canadian Football League feels differently, so that's fine. I've never ref football. I've reffed hockey. Jim Barker and I've had this discussion. He's probably watching right now, but yeah, my intuition, my spider sense is going, don't say it, Rod. Don't go down that rabbit hole. There's just been Glenn Johnson as the head referee was basically in the pocket. He was standing behind the quarterback at all times. And there were many, many times that I saw our quarterback headshots not called. I'm like, what are you looking at? And specifically the 2017 East Final. When Kevin Glenn had his head taken off. You Argo fans, please remind me who was the outside rushing linebacker that almost decapitated Kevin Glenn right in front of Glenn Johnson in the East Final, which we lost by less than a touchdown. It was a very key point of the game. He's looking right at it. And on the air, I blurted out, looks like the CFL wants the Argos in the Grey Cup. Because did I say it was 2017 and where was the Grey Cup was played in Ottawa that year? But I digress. And of course, a couple years later, I'm out of the league and somebody goes, you know your conspiracy theory about the league wanting the Argos in the Grey Cup? You were right. I knew I was right all along, but I get flamed for it. So it is what it is. And I don't come out with these conspiracy theories anymore. It's a lot easier being in this role now. As we continue, I didn't think he was a good referee. I don't think he thought I was a great broadcaster. So we're even. U.S. Open, the first round of the U.S. Open is complete at Oakmont Country Club with only 10 players managing to finish under par. J.J. Spawn leads at 4 under 66. Tristan Lawrence is one shot back, and Brooks Koepka is in a three-way tie at 68. We mentioned the NFL notes near the end of hour one. Here's the thing. The NFL says, Rod, we want you talking more NFL on your show. I get that, but every league wants us talking more about them. Get in line. Western Dodge, text line 902-518-3033. Did I mention I'm ready for the weekend? Got some friends I want to see. And we have a matinee this Sunday afternoon. 2:05, the Swift Current 57s come to town. At Roswell's Park, we'll have the broadcast on Flow Sports. I got the numbers for the viewers. I don't know what it is, but there's way more people watching this year. Western Canadian Baseball League action, and I love it. Another note was when I play Tim Hortons Miller Express Trivia, and I throw out these questions, and I have people respond via Twitter. I'm like, wow. Not only are there a lot of people watching, they're watching from all over. John says Rod will say that ship has sailed. I'm not sure what we're talking about, but I agree. Rod's rant, see above. Talking to my advisor and coach in Florida, Lisa. And she said to me, you know, when you're up there this summer in Canada, it's going to come up. The past is going to come up. I said, it already did. Yesterday, Jeff the Stamps fan on my show said, Rod, if you've changed, do you regret saying Bo Levi shut your mouth in 2017? No, I don't. It was in the past. We do not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. If you know, you know. Rich in Edmonton writes in, he says, Jake Ireland, worst call in the history of the Grey Cup in 1996, inducted into the Hall of Fame. That was the tuck rule, basically, right? Of the CFL. I remember that wonderful game. That was the first ever Grey Cup held. Well, not the first ever in Hamilton, but the first in a very long time, right? The Eskimos and Ronnie Lancaster against Doug Flutie and the Argos. Just speaking of the league wanting the Argos to win, you wonder why they've had the most Grey Cups. Oh, my God. Wayne in BC writes in, he says, if you think you're old, Rod, imagine being me as I'm over 20 years older than you. LOL. Yeah, but I feel old. I also feel very young. It's odd. It's a weird place to be. I used to say to John Frenzy, the Hall of Fame writer, broadcaster. Oh, and it's 1:11 Eastern. Thank you, Carlos, for pointing that out. 1:11. If you're into numerology, you know, you know. John Frenzy, I said to Frenzy once, Lynch, do you ever look back and go, where did these years go? You know, the last couple of years, where'd they go? The older you get, it turns into decades, and that happens. Where'd the decades go? I don't doubt that for a second. Rich in Edmonton says, blows the play dead for no apparent reason, then gives the Argos a first down again for no apparent reason. Yeah, and then he's running the video replay. I could never figure that out. Jake Ireland, you weren't a good ref to begin with, and now you're running the video replay too? Simon writes in. Simon says, question for Jim Barker. If Nathan Rourke is out for multiple weeks, the Lions will need to sign another quarterback as only 3 are on their roster. Who would be the smartest signing for the Lions to fill that third spot? Okay, Jim, if you're watching now, write that down, please. Because I was talking to an agent the other day. Funny how this all works. A player from Arizona, I won't tell you what position, got to me and says, he was a cut out of a CFL camp. He goes, can you line me up with an agent for a job? And I said, well, I'll forward your name on to an agent. The agent got back to me and said, well, I'll put it to the teams. The teams now have short lists. We'll see if we can get this player on the short list for somebody. I sent that to the family, and they said, what's a short list? Exactly that. A short list at every position is if there's injuries, it's like a hot list. Jim Barker will explain it. Somebody, well, they will all have hot lists of quarterbacks. I don't know who's sitting out there right now because I'm not a general manager. I'm not a scout nor a coach. But Jim Barker will have the answer to that, I'm sure. John Ohm says, I love frenzy stories and quotes. Oh, yeah. Joe 747 Gunnis, our business manager who's here in Moose Jaw, he says he loves how I just slip into Lynch mode, especially during CFL season. And where are those game notes, by the way? The gentleman said that I had it wrong, which I don't doubt. I'm wrong a lot. I also learned that from Ken Austin. You know, Kent should be in the Hall of Fame. He's not because it's a popularity contest, and in CFL circles, he wasn't that popular. I loved him, but that's okay. Namaste. Our spirits recognized each other. But Kent said, Kent's news conferences with the Rough Riders were nothing more than a self-help book. He would go, don't be afraid to admit that you're wrong. He goes, I locked my keys in my car twice today. Don't be afraid to admit that you're wrong. Just work on your mistakes and don't make it a habit. That from Ken Austin 101 for free. Don't be afraid to admit your mistakes. Just don't keep making them over and over again. All four games. Here it is. Here it is. Home dominance. All 4 games last week. This is from the CFL game notes. Were won by home teams. Just the second time for that since 2006. Oh, in week 1. That's more palatable. Only in 2022. That's more conceivable. Only in 2022 and 2025 did home teams sweep all 4 week 1 games. All 4 home winners built leads of at least 17 points. What did I say a couple times this week? I'm just a headline reader. I didn't read the small print. I thought it was a home sweep for just the second time since 2006. That was the first sentence, and then I moved on. That was only for week 1. Okay. I'm glad that I have you people here to keep me in line. 902-518-3033 is the Western Dodge text line. Western Dodge in Moose Jaw, your trusted home for Ram, Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler. See their full lineup at westerndodge.ca. Jim Barker in next, and we will have all the questions. Glenn, will Ken Austin ever campaign to win a popularity contest? Not a chance. Right. Me either. Jim Barker.
Hi, my name is Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Laquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Football Friday continues. We do have some breaking news for our Queen City viewers. It remains our number one region for viewership, Regina Sask. Regina-based Queen City Sports and Entertainment is pleased to announce that they have purchased the Regina Red Sox Baseball Club. The deal expected to close on October 1st, 2025. Regina Red Sox play in our Western Canadian Baseball League. We'll be talking about that more later. But Jim Barker is with us from the CFL on TSN. Coach, I think you've been hopefully watching the show for a bit. Your thoughts on the Thursday nighter, week 2 opening, Winnipeg smashing BC 38-20 last night?
Well, some things don't change, and I think physically BC hasn't changed like they had hoped, bringing Buck Pedersen and getting that more physical mentality or just the way they play. They started 4 American offensive linemen and still got beat to hell up front. I mean, there was pressure on Nathan Rourke all night long. Again, it was the first game Winnipeg had played, but they've lost. They've got some new guys in there, and they pressured him. BC couldn't run the ball. They hardly even tried with James Butler. So they're the same as they've been. They're not physical. Defensively, they couldn't handle a lot. Formation wise, they would line up a tight end and just gashed them twice. Oliveira early, and then Pedersen for the touchdown. They just couldn't handle the tight end lined up there. It creates a little different problem. In Canada, defensive coordinators have only learned the width of the field is a strong side and the boundary because of the size of the field. In the U.S., you always learn strength of the formation, meaning a tight end, that becomes a strength of, well, they don't do that in Canada. Most Canadian defensive coordinators, they use the field, and that's what happened. I thought they didn't have run support and got beat there. But bottom line is physically, Winnipeg ran the ball. They ran the ball with Pedersen, a rookie out of Alberta. Again, you like to say Brady Oliveira but it doesn't matter who they put in there. Last year it was Johnny Augustine, and so the problem for BC is they can't get by Winnipeg because they haven't been physical enough. That hasn't changed as of last night. And I think that BC's in trouble if Nathan Rourke is out for a bit. I thought that your point on that was well taken. So let's hope he's not out. But physically, they just can't hang with the top team in that division.
Can you tell me what you see in Chris Strevler? I picked BC to win because Zach Caleros was out, and Strevler, he wasn't the reason for the win, but he didn't lose them either. Your thoughts on this quarterback for Winnipeg?
Well, I did the same thing as you. I picked BC. I figured, physically they're playing 4 offensive linemen. They're going to take it. They're not going to get pushed around the way they always get pushed around. But, of course, that didn't happen. Strevler functions in the offense. It was funny. I was talking to Zach Caleros during the day, and he said the one thing that Chris Strevler can do, if they vacate the center, if they take that free safety out to bring him down to add somebody into the box, he will hurt him. He'll hurt him badly on the back end, and he did. Exactly what happened was exactly what Zach said would happen. So I think Strevler, he's never going to be that guy who's the Dave Dickinson type passer, the very accurate, the Ricky Ray. That's not his game. But if he can keep from throwing interceptions, he has a tendency on short passes. He throws them high, they get intercepted, and because he throws them too high and that kind of thing. But too hard and too high. But you can function with him in the right offense, and I thought that young offensive coordinator Jason Hogan did a fantastic job in terms of keeping Strevler away from himself. Let me put it like that. I mean, allowing him to be the quarterback on a winning team instead of feeling like he had to do it. He was a player on that 12-man offense, and he just had to do his part. And I thought Hogan did a nice job of that, because that's not always easy. It's not always easy to do. So they get Zach back, and they're going to be. I was impressed with their offensive line. Like I say, I thought they handled BC's defensive front easily, and BC just still has a long way to go defensively. How physical are they?
Yeah, and the Lions fan wrote in, you might have seen it. Simon wants to know who they should sign in the absence of Rourke. Who you think might be out there on a short list?
Well, they're probably going to play Chase Bryce. I think they like him a lot, the third guy. I think Jeremiah's great in the role he's in right now, where he can come off the bench. And, again, Chase Bryce is probably the future guy for them. But I would go out, to be honest with you, tomorrow's the UFL championship game. And those two quarterbacks, Jordan Tamu for the DC Defenders, and then the UFL Player of the Year, Bryce Perkins for Michigan, I would look at signing one of those guys. I mean, their season's over and their free agents can sign anywhere. I'd look at somebody like Bryce Perkins. Calgary signed PJ Walker out of that league. He's now their backup and has shown signs of being good. I love Bryce Perkins when he was with the Rams. I thought he had a lot of CFL upside. He runs well and pretty good arm. And so that would be the one thing for watching the UFL championship game, is to watch those two quarterbacks as potential CFL guys down the road. So I would look there, but in the CFL with CFL experience, you have Shea Patterson out there, you have Cameron Dukes out there. You're going to get guys that are maybe have shown they're not going to take you to a Grey Cup. I think with Chase Bryce, they have a young guy that he hasn't proven yet that he's not good enough to take him to the Grey Cup. I think with Shea Patterson, that kind of happened. I mean, I think Saskatchewan gave up on him because they said, you know what, he's not bad, but he's not the guy who can take us if we need it. And same thing with Cameron Dukes. I think the same thing happened to him in Toronto, where they just made a decision. He's not the guy who can, and then your backup quarterback is a different thing. It's not, it's not always the next starter is not always the backup quarterback. And that's what I think they have in Jeremiah Mazzoli.
There's Rob in Las Vegas writes in, by the way, he says, great breakdown of the game, coach, as always. He's a Bomber fan in Vegas. We got to get him over to the Bellagio. You know what I'm saying? Jake Dolagala is out there too. Jake Dolagala is out there too. We have a lot of Argos fans.
Hamilton signed.
Oh, did they sign him?
Dolagala.
Oh, I missed that one.
He's taking he's taking his act there.
They don't send me their news releases because they're mad that I picked on Simone Lawrence back in the day. They're still pissed off about that. Anyways, we have a lot of Argos fans and a lot of Stampeders fans that watch this show, and they meet tomorrow. How do you feel about that game?
I think that the Argos are going to have a problem with Vernon Adams. Now, Vernon Adams has typically struggled in Toronto. I don't know if you remember last year when he was in BC, he was on a roll and he threw like 5 interceptions and kind of came back to earth. So he's had trouble in Toronto. Notwithstanding that, I think he gives the Argos a lot of problems. The Argos, they're a totally different defensive front. I don't know that they have the speed to be able to contain a guy like Vernon Adams. So I'm gonna pick Calgary. I was surprised their defense played as well as they did. I just think that Toronto defensively just did not look good to me at all against Montreal. Again, Davis Alexander. You got to watch a guy. Watching him in his first real game as the starter, he's going to be a player. There's no doubt in my mind he's legit, and he immediately takes Montreal to the top of that East. There's no doubt, because that was my big concern. Montreal plays such great defense, and Davis Alexander understands, if I don't turn the ball over, we're going to have a great chance to win. And he runs the ball effectively enough. But in the Toronto-Calgary game, I think it's a fascinating game. Again, can Nick Arbuckle get this offense to a point? Again, I wasn't happy with their offensive line. Darius Sirocco, who was the starting center, is going to be out. So how can they do against... Again, I didn't know any of these guys outside of Flo. I know Flo, who's coming back to Toronto and is going to be in their backfield all day long, because he just always is, Flo Arumalade. So, again, that defensive front, I thought, for Calgary did a fantastic job last week against Hamilton. And I think that's going to give Toronto's offensive line a lot of problems. So, I'm picking them. I'm not sold on the running back situation in Toronto. Deontay McMahon, he's a great backup running back, but as a starter, it's it's going to be interesting to see how long he stays as that. Kadeem Carey, in the meantime, dresses tomorrow because they lost Hudon for this game, so it'll be Ouellette and Kadeem Carey playing against Hamilton down the road. So it's an interesting weekend. I think they're difficult games to pick. I really do. I think they're outside of Montreal, Ottawa. Outside of Montreal, Ottawa, because of the quarterback situation you talked about. The other games are very difficult to pick for me. It's the Calgary-Toronto game is just that's a tough one. And then Hamilton and Saskatchewan, because, again, Saskatchewan at times plays real well. Their defensive line has a chance to be great. They really do. Shane Ray looked like old Shane Ray. And with him and Malik Carney on the edge, you got two guys that can run. They're going to be put to the test. Scott Milanovic will give them a lot of formations. They're going to have to play the run. They lost CJ Avery, the will linebacker. So A.J. Allen, a Canadian, is going to step in at that will linebacker spot. And I guarantee you he's going to get tested. Greg Bell, he didn't have a great game last week against Calgary. He needs to step up. And then again, Bo Levi against Saskatchewan. They're going to need him to do some things. Saskatchewan's Jackson Ford will be back as a backup. Milligan's not hurt. He's going to be able to play. He's on the roster for tomorrow. So I think that's going to be a great game. It's just I don't know how to pick that game. It's a tough one. I know that Saskatchewan also. Here's the one big change. Peyton Collins, I thought, did a great job for Saskatchewan at left tackle, and they bumped Trevon Tate, who we had in Toronto. He's been in Hamilton. He's been all over the East, and I think he's a really good player. He's a bit of a knucklehead, but he's a really good player. And they moved him down to guard, and I thought he was very dominant inside and kind of controlled things for Saskatchewan at guard. They're now going to play Daniel Johnson, who's a rookie Canadian. Who's he used to be a tight end and now he's a tackle. That's going to be the matchup that they have to win because again I think that's just the one sore spot I have with Saskatchewan, because when Peyton Collins was in there I thought they were just fine. So it's going to be they're interesting games this weekend, Rod.
Oh, as always. You're right about how difficult they are. Last week I was 4-0 in the picks. This week I'm not. Well, I'm already 0-1. Because I had BC to win last night. But here's one. Bo Levi is going after his 100th win. It'll be the fastest quarterback to get it in CFL history. And even if it doesn't happen tomorrow, whenever it happens, he will have done it the fastest ever. Whereas Trevor Harris has won 5 in a row. And I feel like you've read the game notes. He's 11-6 as a starter for Saskatchewan. It's nice to have those iconic quarterback battles, is it not? For you as the TV guy now, the media guy, rather than some backup nobody's ever heard of. That's nice. And I always loved Ryder games at Hamilton. There's something about that place. I think because it means so much to everybody. It's a great CFL city. That's
it is.
Why I've got it. I got it as the game of the week, to be honest, for me.
Really? Yeah, it's going to be, it will be great. But you're exactly right. Great quarterback play lends itself to great games. That game last night, I didn't think Streveler could play like that. And he did. When you got him playing the way he did and Nathan Rourke playing on the other, you're going to have a great football. And that was a great football game. There was a lot of exciting things that happened, a lot of big plays. The little returner, Valva for Winnipeg was dynamic. I mean, you don't see that kind of athleticism in the American game. You watch the UFL or you watch even the NFL, it's on a smaller field. You can't see the athleticism displayed the way I thought it was last night. I just felt like both teams were playing a lot of man coverage, so you could see receivers actually separating, and there was just a lot of things about that game that showed the beauty of the Canadian Football League. So, but yeah, in terms of picking them, that's tough. It's a tough one.
Gary in Winnipeg writes in about the face of the league. He says, in my opinion, not even close to who would be. Oh, hang on. He says, how about Coach O'Shea's trim job on his beard? He looks 15 years younger and looks like he could put the pads on for a game. He probably could, but he's the guy a couple of weeks ago, Jim Barker said, is the face of the CFL as far as you're concerned. Edmonton has the bye. How worried should they be that they're 0-1? I thought they showed pretty well in Edmonton, and if not for that called back punt return touchdown, it would have been a closer game, I thought, under the orange top there.
Well, I thought that too until I watched BC last night. BC as non-physical as they were and play the way they did, and I thought, wow, maybe Edmonton is not much better. But I think any team that like Hamilton right now, I think that Calgary-Hamilton game last week, I said, one team's going to come out. Calgary won the game. They're coming out and they got the world. They got the world by the balls. I mean, it's their world now. They're undefeated in the preseason. They're playing great. Here they come into Toronto, who's 0-1 and doubting themselves. You got Hamilton going into Saskatchewan. Saskatchewan, they were able to get a win, a tough win, but they got a win against an Eastern opponent. Now they come into Hamilton with a little bit more, and Hamilton's like, wow, we went through this again. And, if they don't get – now the pressure on winning, like for Hamilton and Toronto this week at home, the pressure's on them to win. Yet they're playing teams that won last week that are coming in on a bit of a high early in the season. You can lose it in a hurry. I mean, last year, Hamilton started the season 0-5, and they just couldn't recover from it. Winnipeg went 0-4 and recovered. But usually it's tough to recover from that. So a lot of that has to do with the mental makeup of your team and what happens when you lose games. And that Calgary-Hamilton loss, I think, it hurts Hamilton. It puts more pressure on them against Saskatchewan than they would normally have.
Absolutely. Everybody's got the Riders picked to win. I'm actually going with the Ticats because it was raining. It was echoing in my head. They're Jim's Grey Cup winner, the Ticats. I think they're going to win tomorrow, but I'm like the only guy that does.
Yeah, I kind of think they are too. I don't know why. I just kind of that thing of they can't go 0-5 again. I just can't see that happening. Yeah. Their receiving core is a little better. They just didn't. They played almost like they were not sure. I mean, it was surprising to me because I'd been to a lot of their practices. But again, I'm picking them to bounce back. I think that Hamilton will play well against Saskatchewan, and I'm really worried about that left tackle spot for Saskatchewan. I hope Daniel Johnson steps in and does fantastic because that helps the league to have a Canadian who can step in at left tackle. But I got a lot of question marks about it. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they're able to do offensively. They'll have AJ Ouellette and Kadeem Carey carrying the ball. That's a good thing. So it just makes for a great game. It really does.
They're saying in Sask that AJ Ouellette got a heck of a lot healthier, faster when Kadeem Carey showed up in town. Could you believe that would be a thing? He was healthy all of a sudden. Oh my God.
Well, I'm sure what happened was it had to have been a concussion. And and once that wears off, they retest you, and once he gets himself back to where he was before the game, then they clear him to play. So that's what I'm guessing it was. But again, we talked about this last week. When you're a runner like AJ Ouellette, who is a downhill, smack you in the face guy, you don't change that when you lose weight. You're still that guy.
It's not going to be fitness.
But now you're doing it.
Sorry, Jim. Sorry. I assume you were telling him that we were going to break. My apologies, Jim. But we got the gist of it. And we'll be coming back with a sports update.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center July 7th with special guest Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit shaniatwain.com.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
I'm Bridget Laquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me in Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Did you know that you can help save life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
All right, we're back on the air on a Football Friday, everybody. Glad to have you aboard Canada's favorite daytime sports talk show. We got a sports update coming up here literally in moments. I want to tell you that overtime's on the way as well, where it's going to be full-on viewer takeover. But if we get through this sports update in time, lucky you, will start viewer takeover early because I am in the party mood on a Friday. It's like the teacher saying, let's have show and tell for the rest of the day. How about that? The text line's open, 902-518-3033, brought to you by Western Dodge and Moose Jaw, your trusted home for Ram, Jeep, Dodge, and Chrysler. See their full lineup at westerndodge.ca. They've given me to drive for the summer a Dodge Hornet hybrid. And I'm going to tell you, I'm having so much fun learning how to navigate this thing. It is like driving a golf cart. That's what they said when I drove it off the lot. Stump. It's not like a regular car. Finding places to charge, it's just a lot of fun at Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. They're great people over there. Huge pre-owned inventory, by the way. Western Dodge and Moose Jaw. Check them out and tell them the RP show sent you. Anyways, they bring you the text line, 902-518-3033. Whatever you would like to talk about with what we've been talking about today. My God, if you're a CFL fan, today's show has been for you, hasn't it? We've been all over it. And Stanley Cup as well. Heavy Jim brings you the sports updates. The Stanley Cup final will resume Saturday after the Edmonton Oilers evened the best-of-7 series at 2-2 with a 5-4 overtime victory over the Florida Panthers. Leon Draisaitl scored his record-setting fourth overtime goal of this postseason to lift the Oilers to victory. 2-2 is the series. Game 5 Saturday. You could go with the cheesy poll question. Who's going to win Game 5 or who's going to win the Stanley Cup? But Moose and I put our heads together this morning and decided the best poll question would be for EMJ Marketing, who should the Oilers start in goal for Game 5? See you guys. Have a good one. Good luck tonight. Moose John Miller's in the house. And tonight they're on the road, and that gives me a night off. So I would have said Stuart Skinner. I still think if John Cooper was coaching the team, he'd start Stuart Skinner, but I'm not sure. I just go back to the Four Nations face-off when Jordan Binnington was having his problems in net for Canada, and he stuck with Jordan Binnington. But I think even Stuart Skinner would say, yeah, start Picks. I guess we'll see. We all got to tune in Saturday night, 6 p.m. on Sportsnet, CBC, and on TNT in the USA. Montreal Alouettes are in Ottawa tonight, taking on the Red Blacks. Montreal opened the season with a strong 28-10 win over the defending Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts last week. Meanwhile, Ottawa looks for its first win after falling to Sask 31-26. This should be a good one, but it finished fourth in the voting for Canada's Game of the Week. Canada's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and the Oklahoma City Thunder look to even up the NBA Finals tonight when they visit the Indiana Pacers. Indiana took a 2-1 lead in the best-of-7 series Wednesday with a 116-107 win. Might watch that tonight. We'll see. The Toronto Blue Jays look to extend their 3-game win streak when they open a 3. Well, Toronto's won 5 of their last 6. How about that? And news out of the Queen City. This one does hit close to home for me. Regina-based Queen City Sports and Entertainment Group is pleased to announce that they have signed a deal to acquire 100% of the Regina Red Sox. This new limited partnership will be named the Regina Red Sox Baseball Club. The deal is expected to close October 1st. QC-SEG is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Brandt Group of companies with a mandate to provide a diverse offering of sports and entertainment opportunities to the Queen City. With this acquisition, the Red Sox will join a growing portfolio of sports clubs that has included the Regina Pats since 2014, and I think is the only team in the portfolio. But they are growing. Here in Moose Jaw, they're saying, okay, you already don't like Okotoks, which isn't really true, but they are a rival. If we get you hating Regina, you'll be a full-on Moose Javian. I'm like, yeah, that's probably not going to happen. Heavy Gym just isn't about lifting weights. It's about lifting your spirit, your strength, and your potential. Step into the gym that's changing lives. Find out more at heavygym.ca. You don't live somewhere for half a century and do the things that I did there and turn around and hate them. At least I don't. I again go to Mickey Donovan's neighbor in the show, Ray Donovan. I try to get along with everybody. It's just easier. And I'm still quite proud that Luke Wilson said that I'm in his top 3 CFL fans in the whole world. Me, Sasky City, and Justin Duncan, me. Top 3 CFL fans. We'll discuss it all in overtime right after this.
Hi, my name's Logan Stankoven.
And I'm Connor Bedard.
We're both Hockey Gives Blood player ambassadors and proud to be blood donors.
There are thousands of patients each year in Canada that rely on a generous stranger to save their life.
Please book an appointment today to donate blood at blood.ca/HGB.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Did you know that you can help save a life? And you can start right now.
Stem cells from male donors increase chances of positive outcomes for patients, yet they only make up 40% of our registry.
Today, there are hundreds of people in Canada searching for their life-saving match.
You can be a patient's best hope. Be a hero by registering with Canadian Blood Services Stem Cell Registry now.
I'm Bridget Lacquette. I'm a First Nation Olympic silver medalist, and I'm proud to represent Indigenous hockey players across Canada. Each year, hundreds of Canadians need a stem cell transplant from an unrelated donor to save their life. Anyone can have a hard time finding a stem cell match, but for Indigenous peoples, it can be even more difficult because just over 1% of prospective donors on Canada's stem cell registry are of Indigenous backgrounds. Be a hero. Join me and Hockey Gives Blood in helping to make a life-saving difference to those in need. Register today at blood.ca/beahero.
Text 902-518-3033. 902-518-3033. Pick up your phone and text RP, that's Rod Pedersen. Text 902-518-3033.
Shania Twain.
Let's go, girls.
Live in Moose Jaw. Shania Twain. One incredible show. Live at Temple Garden Center, July 7th. With special guest, Lindsay L. Get tickets Friday, March 21st at 10 a.m. at the Temple Garden Center's box office or sasktix.ca. For more, visit ShaniaTwain.com.
Honky Tonk legend Mark Chestnut. Celebrating 35 years of music. Joined by special guest Aaron Goodvin. June 28th at Temple Garden Center. Tickets on sale now at Temple Garden Center box office or online at sasktix.ca.
Okay, everybody, we are back for overtime here in the Moose Jaw Golden Ticket Sports Center. Glad to have you aboard. By the way, everybody, never miss a beat with the Rod Squad newsletter. Subscribe now for free to the RP Show newsletter and get exclusive content, insider updates, and breaking sports news delivered straight to your inbox. Sign up today at rodpeterson.com. That sucker drops usually late Sunday morning or early Sunday afternoon. It's the 10 Weekend Things column, the award-winning column that I used to post at rodpeterson.com. We've moved it to newsletter format, and you just heard it. You get Moose's column, Scruffy's column, betting tips during NFL season, all kinds of great stuff in there. And all we do is ask you to go to rodpeterson.com and sign up for free today. Overtime is brought to you by Overtime Hockey Lanes, as you see on the screen if you're watching. They're in Calgary, where I can't wait to get out to Calgary this summer. It will happen. There's a lot of exciting things going on in Calgary for a guy like me, including Overtime Hockey Lanes, where there is no off-season. You can find them at 28th Street Northeast. It's an amusement park for hockey players. There's always something new going on there. They don't get stagnant. They don't get stale. Just go check them out. If you say you love hockey, prove it. Go to Overtime Hockey Lanes, 28th Street Northeast, and tell them the RP Show sent you. You know, it's interesting. Rich, you're funny. Rich, I got to meet you. Rich from Edmonton writes in, he says, taking a break from sports watching this evening after last night's drama and Sunrise. Might just hide under my bed in the fetal position. You laugh. I do that most days. And I was actually talking to a guy the other day in the recovery field. My guy, Alan Kaler, he won't mind saying. Some days we just lay down and cover up with a blanket. I'm done. I've had a few of those days this week for a variety of reasons. Biggest one, everybody wants something. Again, I mean everybody. It's something about that border. I come back, cross that 49th parallel, and my phone blows up. Everybody wants something. And I'm learning this new word. Oh, my God, this new word, producer Corey. It's called, it rhymes with bow, but it's pronounced no. They don't like hearing it, just so you know. So, yeah. Phone off, do not disturb, weekends on, and I'm probably going to go to a movie tonight. I'm not sure. Hey, Rod, I was thinking, you can help me with this. I haven't heard from you in years. Rich in Edmonton says, let's meet up one of these fine days with AJ in Ottawa. That would be great. John Ohm. Who's got more pressure to win the Cup, Edmonton or Florida? Edmonton, actually. And Jeff the Stamps fan is right. He says Edmonton, easily more pressure. Florida just won last year. And it's not like they're not as hungry as Edmonton, but they just won last year. They're still partying from last year. Are you ready for what could happen across this country of Canada if the Edmonton Oilers win the Stanley Cup? And which, by the way, it's not going to upset me if they do. And I think I've calmed the Edmonton people down because, as producer Corey has told me, we have a big following at Edmonton. I knew that. But the drought would be over. Things are mulling over in my mind that I feel like I'm not going to repeat. For some reason, people feel the need to report to me things. And I'm at the point where I used to report those, and now I'm like, thanks for telling me. Yeah. It had to do with the NHL. People in South Florida sending me in. I saw this guy here. Robert, hey, Rob, in Vegas. He writes, he says, check out Mission Impossible, Rod. I think I might do that. Playing here at Galaxy Cinemas in Moose Jaw. Producer Corey says it looks good. How about the hot dogs? That's all that matters. How do the hot dogs look? That's why I really go to the movies. John Ohm says, my mom calls Edmonton the comeback kids. She's totally into it. Yeah, the NHL has gripped this country more now than ever, and there's not a lot of room for anything else. But just so you know, John Ohm, tell your mom it's the comeback cats. Has been for a while. It's taken. What else? Tony talked about locking his keys in his car. That was part of the life lesson I was giving earlier that Ken Austin passed along. Don't be afraid to admit your mistakes. So many people won't. And you don't have to, but it kind of just don't repeat them. It's okay. I think Kent should be in the Hall of Fame. I've railed on that enough. I railed on it yesterday. I wasn't going to sit here and rail on it today. It's become a popularity contest, all of these Hall of Fames. And to be honest, it kind of ruined my love of the Hall of Fames. I've told the Hall of Fame people that. I've emceed Hall of Fame events for years. I just can't get into it anymore because it's become a popularity contest. It used to be, did he or she have a Hall of Fame career? Yes, you're in. Now it's, but who did they piss off? What about this? They said this back in 1997, so we can't. Why did you ruin it? Why? It was one of the biggest things that I loved to debate was Hall of Fames and who was worthy and who wasn't, and they ruined it. There is basketball action in a couple of CEBL markets tonight. The Scarborough Shooting Stars are at Saskatchewan. That's at SaskTel Center in Saskatoon. Edmonton Stingers are at Niagara. Western Canadian Baseball League. Weyburn's at Regina. My Moose Jaw Millers are at Swift Current. Saskatoon at Brooks. Okotoks at Medicine Hat. Lethbridge at Fort McMurray. And Energy City at Sylvan Lake. Get out, buy a ticket, and support some great ball. It's all collegiate ball players and great guys. Game 4 of the NBA Finals is on your telly. Oklahoma City at Indianapolis. The Blue Jays are at Philadelphia. And in the CFL, as I say, Montreal at Ottawa. Thank you, Bomber Boy. Thank you, Jeff the Stamps fan. Thanks, everybody who shows up every day and keeps us in business. I don't know what we would do without it. Fortunately, we don't have to worry about that. We'll be back here Monday talking about all of these things. Be good to each other, but more importantly, be good to yourself, because most won't. See you Monday, everybody.
Now I'm the whore and the pimp. That's where the money is.
How about that?